Summary of the life and career of Helen Keller, Light in Deep Darkness. Chapter 1, Childhood and Family, 1880 to 1887. Helen Adams Keller was born on June 27, 1880, at Ivy Green Plantation in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Her father, Arthur Henley Keller, was a former Confederate Army captain who later became the editor of the North Alabamian. In 1885, he was appointed Marshal of North Alabama, expanding his connections. Her mother, Catherine Everett Adams, was from a New England lineage and educated in Memphis. The family lost much of their wealth after the Civil War, living modestly at the plantation. Helen had 4 siblings, Mildred, Philip, and 2 half-brothers, James and William, from her father's first marriage. Ivy Green Plantation, surrounded by nature, sparked Helen's curiosity, such as when she touched trees or felt the breeze. In February 1882, at 19 months old, Helen contracted a severe illness, possibly scarlet fever or meningitis, resulting in complete loss of sight and hearing. Her isolation made Helen stubborn, often throwing tantrums, breaking objects, or kicking those around her. She developed rudimentary signs, like pulling her mother's hand to request food, but realized her family communicated orally, causing frustration. Her tantrums led some relatives to consider institutionalizing her, but her mother steadfastly sought solutions, believing in her daughter's potential. Helen's innate intelligence was evident to her mother through her responses to her environment, such as recognizing people by their footsteps. Her mother read books to Helen, though she didn't understand, nurturing her intellectual potential. In 1886, the family traveled to Baltimore to consult a renowned eye doctor, who could not treat her but recommended specialized education. The doctor referred the family to Alexander Graham Bell, who researched education for the deaf and invented the telephone. With empathy, Bell advised contacting the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston. There, they found Sullivan, a 20-year-old recent graduate who had been partially blind, bringing new hope for Helen. The Keller family faced financial difficulties, but Helen's father leveraged his marshal role to seek support. Her mother's determination, combined with her father's connections, facilitated meetings with Bell and Sullivan. This period laid the foundation for a major transformation in Helen's life when Sullivan arrived in Tuscumbia in 1887, opening the door to knowledge. Chapter 2, Meeting Sullivan, 1887 to 1894. On March 3, 1887, Mansfield Sullivan, a 20-year-old from the Perkins School, arrived in Tuscumbia, marking a turning point in Helen's life. Anne, who had been partially blind due to an eye condition, understood Helen's challenges. She used the manual alphabet, spelling words like D-O-L-L into Helen's hand, linking them to objects. Initially, Helen didn't understand, often reacting with anger, throwing things, or resisting. And persisted, blending discipline with affection, building a mother-daughter-like bond. To avoid family distractions, Anne and Helen moved to a small house on the property for 2 weeks. And taught through hands-on experiences, like touching objects while spelling their names. This method helped Helen focus, gradually recognizing tactile signs. On April 5, 1887, at the water pump, Anne spelled W-T-E-R as water flowed over Helen's hand. Helen suddenly understood that signs represented objects, unlocking knowledge. By day's end, she learned 30 words and began writing letters with a pencil. And taught Helen to read Braille, use a Braille typewriter, and study subjects like math and geography. In 1888, Helen and Anne went to the Perkins School in Boston. Helen studied literature, history, and science, communicating with blind peers via manual signs. She befriended classmates, expanding her social world. In 1890, at age 10, Helen resolved to learn to speak, hoping to communicate directly like others. And took Helen to the Horace Mann School, where Sarah Fuller taught 11 speech lessons, guiding Helen to feel throat and lip vibrations. Helen practiced speaking for hours but was dissatisfied with her unnatural voice. And continued to assist, helping Helen improve pronunciation through persistent practice, though results were limited. In 1891, Helen wrote The Frost King, accused of plagiarizing Margaret Canby's The Frost Fairies. The incident caused psychological harm, making Helen doubt herself. Alexander Graham Bell and Mark Twain defended her, asserting it was unintentional. This period shaped her communication skills, preparing her for future academic and writing endeavors. Chapter 3, Academic Journey, 1894 to 1904. In 1894, Helen and moved to New York to attend the Wright-Humason School for the Deaf. Helen studied literature, mathematics, and history, focusing on speech and lip reading, though progress was slow. The school provided a specialized environment, enhancing Helen's communication skills, though she still relied on and to understand lessons. In 1896, Helen enrolled at the Cambridge School for Young Ladies under Arthur Gilman's guidance, and attended classes, spelling lectures into Helen's hand, despite straining her eyes. Helen excelled in English, French, German, and history. Cambridge prepared her for her ambitious goal, college admission. In 1900, Helen was admitted to Radcliffe College, Harvard's women's branch. She studied English literature, economics, philosophy, and languages, using a Braille typewriter for exams, and translated materials into Braille, helping Helen manage the intense workload, though both often faced exhaustion from the rigorous pace. In 1902, Helen began writing The Story of My Life, serialized in Ladies' Home Journal. Published in 1903, the book chronicled her journey overcoming disabilities, translated into 50 languages, inspiring readers worldwide. Helen wrote in Braille, with N and editor John Macy assisting with revisions for accuracy. In 1904, Helen graduated cum laude, becoming the first deaf-blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. She joined the literary club, discussing Shakespeare and Goethe, and built relationships with peers. Her Radcliffe achievement opened educational opportunities for people with disabilities, proving their intellectual potential. Helen faced societal prejudices but was supported by professors and classmates. She wrote articles for magazines, sharing personal experiences, laying the groundwork for her writing career. Anne, though exhausted, remained by her side, ensuring access to knowledge. This period marked Helen's growth from student to renowned author. Chapter 4, Social Activism, 1904 to 1920. After graduation, Helen and moved to Wrentham, Massachusetts. Helen published Optimism, 1903, exploring her faith in life, beloved by readers. She continued with The World I Live In, 1908, describing her sensory experiences, and The Song of the Stone Wall, 1910, a philosophical poem reflecting deep thought. In 1909, Helen joined the Socialist Party, advocating for workers' rights, gender equality, and anti-war causes. She wrote for The Century and McClure's, sharing socialist views. Her 1916 speech, The Strike Against War, at Carnegie Hall opposed World War I, calling for peace and social justice. In 1916, Helen fell in love with Peter Fagan, an assistant, and planned a secret marriage, seeking personal freedom. Her family opposed, believing she couldn't live independently, causing the plan to fail. The event left regrets, but Helen focused on her work, moving to Forest Hills, New York, after selling the Wrentham home. In 1919, Helen starred in the silent film Deliverance, reenacting her life to inspire audiences. Though commercially unsuccessful, it reached new viewers. She lectured across the U.S., using her voice and signs, with Anne or Polly Thompson interpreting, captivating thousands. In 1920, Helen co-founded the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, advocating for free speech and civil rights. She joined women's movements, meeting leaders like Eugene Debs to discuss social reform. Her work blended writing and advocacy, raising awareness of disability rights. During this period, Helen became a prominent activist, laying the groundwork for future international work. She wrote for magazines, sharing experiences and political views. Her relationship with Fagan revealed her desire for freedom, though societal pressures limited her. Helen established her role as a humanitarian, inspiring through actions and words. Chapter 5, Advocacy and International Work, 1920 to 1946. From 1924, Helen worked for the American Foundation for the Blind, AFB, dedicating 40 years to improving education and employment for the blind. She advocated for state commissions, rehabilitation centers, and specialized services for the deaf-blind by 1946, helping thousands access opportunities. As an international advisor for Helen Keller International, Helen promoted global blindness prevention programs, providing nutrition and healthcare in developing nations. She collaborated with organizations like the Red Cross, aiding war refugees. Her writings and speeches called for educational reform, emphasizing universal learning rights. During World War II, Helen visited military hospitals, encouraging injured soldiers by sharing her story. She met veterans who lost sight or hearing, inspiring them to relearn life skills. Her visits not only comforted but also raised awareness about rehabilitation. In 1944, Helen spoke at a rally for President Franklin D. Roosevelt at Madison Square Garden, highlighting the importance of social welfare. She wrote to leaders, urging investment in education and healthcare. And Sullivan's death in 1936 was a significant loss, but Polly Thompson continued supporting Helen's work. Helen became a national icon, influencing disability policies. She attended conferences, discussing rights with legislators. Her AFB work led to specialized teacher training programs, expanding educational access. This period solidified her humanitarian role, preparing her for global advocacy. Helen's efforts extended beyond the U.S., impacting the world. She wrote for international magazines, sharing her vision of equality. Helen Keller International's programs provided eye care and education to children in Asia and Africa, leaving a lasting humanitarian legacy. Chapter 6, Global Ambassador, 1946 to 1960. From 1946 to 1957, Helen embarked on goodwill tours to 35 countries across 5 continents. In 1948, invited by General Douglas MacArthur, she visited Japan, drawing 2 million attendees to events. She spoke at schools, advocating for education for disabled children. In 1955, at age 75, Helen undertook a 40,000-mile journey through Asia, meeting Winston Churchill, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Golda Meir. She discussed peace, education, and disability rights, fostering cultural bridges. In each country, she learned local sign language to connect with disabled children. Helen befriended Eleanor Roosevelt, Albert Einstein, and Charlie Chaplin, sharing visions of social justice. She received honorary degrees from Harvard, Glasgow, Delhi, and Witwatersrand, recognizing her educational and humanitarian contributions. Universities invited her to speak, inspiring students with resilience and compassion. In 1955, Helen received an Academy Honorary Award for the documentary Helen Keller and Her Story, celebrating her journey. Widely screened, the film raised disability awareness. Helen used her fame to promote healthcare programs, especially in developing nations. Helen's trips not only raised awareness but also spurred new policies. In India, she met education officials, encouraging schools for the blind. In Israel, she supported vocational training, aiding independence for the disabled. Her multilingual speeches amplified her global influence. During this period, Helen became an international icon, cementing her humanitarian legacy. She wrote to leaders, advocating for education and healthcare investment. Helen Keller International expanded programs, supporting children in Asia and Africa. Helen left a global mark, inspiring human rights movements. Chapter 7, Final Years and Legacy, 1960 to 1968. In 1960, Helen suffered a stroke, impacting her health, leading her to live quietly at Arkin Ridge, Connecticut, from 1961. She reduced public activities, focusing on letter writing and reflecting on her life. Her final public appearance was in 1961, receiving the Lions Humanitarian Award for her contributions to the disabled. Helen met President John F. Kennedy, continuing her tradition of meeting every U.S. president since Grover Cleveland. She received thousands of letters from admirers expressing gratitude. In 1964, Helen was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest U.S. civilian honor, recognizing her global humanitarian impact. She passed away on June 1, 1968, at Arkin Ridge, with her ashes placed alongside Sullivan and Polly Thompson at Washington National Cathedral. Senator Lister Hill delivered her eulogy, praising her as a symbol of courage. Her death marked the end of a dedicated life, but her legacy endured. In 1973, Helen was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, recognizing her pioneering role in women's and disability rights. Organizations like AFB and Helen Keller International expanded education and healthcare programs, supporting millions worldwide. Her name became synonymous with perseverance and compassion. Schools and libraries, like the Helen Keller School in Alabama, continue to inspire. Helen left behind over 12 books, hundreds of speeches, and a global humanitarian legacy. Helen Keller International's programs provided eye care and education to children in Africa and Asia. In this period, Helen left an enduring mark, becoming a symbol of compassion. Her legacy lies not only in awards but in societal changes, from education to disability rights, impacting humanity forever. Chapter 8, Awards and Honors. Helen Keller received numerous prestigious awards throughout her life. She was granted honorary degrees from Temple University, 1951, Harvard, 1955, Glasgow, 1956, Berlin, 1956, Delhi, 1957, and Witwatersrand, 1958. These honors recognized her contributions to education, humanitarianism, and global disability awareness. In 1955, Helen received an Academy Honorary Award for the documentary Helen Keller and Her Story. The film, depicting her journey of overcoming challenges, was widely screened, inspiring audiences. The award affirmed her role as a cultural and humanitarian icon, influencing both art and society. In 1961, Helen received the Lions Humanitarian Award, honoring her 40-year dedication to the blind through her work with AFB. This award recognized her efforts in improving education and employment, helping the disabled integrate into society. She received it amid international admiration. In 1964, Helen was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Lyndon B. Johnson. The medal acknowledged her global influence in changing perceptions of the disabled and promoting social justice, marking a significant milestone in her historic legacy. In 1973, Helen was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, recognizing her pioneering role in women's and disability rights. Many schools, libraries, and organizations bear her name, such as the Helen Keller School in Alabama. Awards named after her, given by AFB, honor those dedicated to the disabled. Helen's legacy is a lasting inspiration, promoting equality and education. Organizations like AFB and Helen Keller International continue her work, supporting vulnerable children and communities. Her name is synonymous with courage, leaving an enduring mark not only through awards but through lasting societal changes.